Okay, good morning. I'm not feeling very well today, but I have to come into school because I've got some things I have to take care of with my intro to theater class. However, I probably am going to leave after third period, so I'm making this video recording mostly for fifth period, but for anyone who wants to review. So today we're going to talk about the second part of the final exam, which is an argumentative essay that you're going to be writing. Timed right. You're going to get the prompt on the day of the final, and you'll have to figure out how to write it in the amount of time that you have. So let's talk a little bit about the argumentative essay quick review. So once you get the prompt for the argumentative essay, I want you to read the prompt, think about it, read the prompt again, and think about it again. Then I want you to make sure you decide where you think your position is going to be. It doesn't have to match your actual ideas of what you think is right or wrong. You have to decide basically what kind of evidence do I have that supports each side. What do I think my classmates will be writing about? Because sometimes it's a really good idea to write on the opposing side of what you think the bulk of people will be, because then your essay will stand out. Kind of decide on what strategy you want to go into it with. Then I'm going to suggest that you do a little chart, gridding out your pro and con arguments, and then evidence possibilities that you can use to support the different pro or con statements. Then begin writing. So like the first 10 minutes or so of getting the prompt, you should actually be pre-writing and thinking about the prompt before you even start to write. All right, let's take a look at a sample question. This was used in 2007, I believe. So it's about Buy Nothing Day. I don't know if you've ever heard of it, but let's go ahead and read the prompt. The first Buy Nothing Day, a day on which people are urged to purchase no goods, was organized in Canada in 1992 as a way to increase awareness of excessive consumerism. A Buy Nothing Day has been held yearly since then in many nations. An online article, Buy Nothing Day 2006 press release, urged worldwide acceptance of taking a 24-hour consumer detox as part of the 14th annual Buy Nothing Day, in order to expose the environmental and ethical consequences of over-consumerism. Consider the implications of a day on which no goods are purchased, then write an essay in which you develop a position on the establishment of an annual Buy Nothing Day. Support your argument with appropriate evidence. Okay, so you read the prompt and you think to yourself, do I think about this subject in the same way as the speaker or the writer? And it seems like when I read this prompt that even though it is fairly neutral and informative on the top, I would say that it might side towards supporting a Buy Nothing Day. So if I agree that there should be a Buy Nothing Day, then I'm agreeing. If I disagree, if I think that that person is like that idea is completely wrong, then I'm disagreeing. And then if I think some of it would work and some of it wouldn't, I qualify. And keep in mind when you're reading these argumentative essays that there are other words from agree, disagree, and qualify, support, refute, all of that kind of stuff kind of goes along with those words. So decide where you're going to stand. But you could actually start gridding first and doing your pre-writing first. So on the prompt sheet, what I suggest you do is you take your paper and you divide it into two columns, the pro and the con column. And here you write all the arguments that support the idea of a Buy Nothing Day, for example. And here you write all the things that could be bad about a Buy Nothing Day. And you give yourself 2 or 3 minutes to brainstorm and just jot down in phrases all the things that you think of in that time. When you're done with that brainstorm, you can begin by crossing out some of the things that you don't think are good reasons for why you might agree or disagree with a Buy Nothing Day, and then you kind of narrow down to ones that are better. So if you are watching this on Schoology right now, or if you are watching this in my classroom, pause for a moment and write down all the positives that you can think of for Buy Nothing Day on a pro side and all the cons. And then cross out the ones that you think are weak reasons. But write down everything for the first 2 or 3 minutes that pop into your head. Okay, Once you're done with the pre-writing and you've thought of like what kind of evidence and things like that you can use, there are some things that you need to do early in the essay. First, give some background to the issue. You can use information from the prompt or information from history. So, for example, with the Buy Nothing Day, I could talk about things from history like um, at the end of World War II, consumerism became and capitalism became a huge uh, like forward thrust in the United States because people were talking about how it is your patriotic duty to buy American and to spend your hard-earned money on things to kind of like fill up your home and things like that because they believe that that would help the economy bounce back. I talk about that. I might talk about Reaganomics, which in the 1980s was a similar economic strategy that kind of encouraged consumerism and uh, how to spend your money and spending your money. I might talk about the Made in the USA tag and how throughout time that's kind of been pushed to look for products in the USA and use those to support the country. So because we live in a world that is based on capitalism, there's a lot of different examples in our history that show that we are a consumer culture. Um, I might write some background information about the environmental issues that come from being a consumer culture as well. Foreground the given position means that you need to be very clear about what side you are on in the early part of the essay by presenting a really good complex thesis. And remember, we're looking at a split thesis. Even though I want you to be clear about what side you're on, I want you to remember that these are not easy issues, and you won't be given a very good score if you like write about everything in black and white. Everything has another side to it, and you need to acknowledge that other side. So a split thesis does that. So you could say, although many believe that the idea of a Buy Nothing Day in the United States would be an excellent way to curb the consumerism in our culture, it is clear that a national Buy Nothing Day would do little to prevent the spread of capitalism and consumerism that affects our environment. Okay? All right, next part. So, what they look for is specific and appropriate evidence, which means that you need to be specific about what you're talking about. If you have facts and statistics or definitions or examples or comparisons and contrast, cause and effect, appeal to authority, making sure you recognize the opposition, those are great, but make sure you're not hypothetical. So, or talking too personally, like if you're writing about Buy Nothing Day and you talk about how much your cousin spent on Black Friday in order to get Christmas presents for your whole family, that's not really appropriate evidence. It's specific, but it's probably not the best evidence that you're going to be using to support your thesis. So think about what is the most appropriate evidence and try to put that in there. So what organization should you use in your argument? You could use Rogerian organization. It is a little bit more difficult in a timed writing situation because you may never get around to your side. So I honestly suggest you use classical for this one. We'll learn about Toulmin in second semester. So the easiest is classical. And if you think time is a concern, don't write in emphatic order. Emphatic order is when you put your second most important idea first, your least important idea in the middle, and your most important idea last. Don't do that because you'll run out of if you run out of time, you'll lose time before you get to your most important idea. So instead, write them in order of how important that idea is, first, second, and third. Okay, classical argumentative. This is what you do. The introductory paragraphs, you have your introduction and your narration, which is any background from the prompt and any outside history or knowledge you have. So like I said, for the Buy Nothing Day, I would give information about maybe after World War II, and I might give a little bit of information about Reaganomics and our consumer culture. Then you write your confirmation paragraphs. Don't spend too much time, by the way, on the background. Maybe a paragraph, and a short paragraph at that. Then move on to your confirmation paragraphs. Be very clear the first sentence of every confirmation paragraph should be a claim that you're making. And that should be a claim that you have from this slide, from what are the pros and what are the cons. Then you move on to the refutation, and that's where you choose the arguments, the strongest arguments against the ones that you have presented as your arguments. Um, so remember that it's the yes, but. Yes, it may be possible that an annual Buy Nothing Day could help us in the United States because blah, 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 blah. However, if I were saying that the National Buy Nothing Day would only hurt small businesses and not hurt large businesses that probably do the most damage to the environment, that might be where my butt comes in. Okay, and then last, concluding paragraph, remember, summary is out. We want to look at the big picture and the so what. We want to do things like we can recommend, like maybe what should happen in the future, or changes in this case you can make to the Buy Nothing Day idea. You can predict what might happen in the future with whatever the topic is, or you can provide a quote if there's some sort of famous quote that you can use or think of in the time that you have. Don't repeat any information. Don't summarize any information. Remember, you're looking at trying to come up with a big picture. So this essay is all about appeals to logic, appeals to ethos, appeals to pathos. You want to use all types of tools at your disposal, and you want to write passionately. Don't just write with information. The argumentative essay of all the essay types is the essay where they're looking most at how well you can use rhetorical strategies that you've learned throughout the year. So repetition, appealing to ethos, appealing to logic by providing good ideas, using effective transitions, including like motivation and the timing of the idea, explaining why it's relevant to current events. All that stuff is very important. And appeals to pathos, strong language choice, formal diction, including imagery, anecdotes, including repetition and some rhetorical ideas, all those things that we've talked about throughout the semester so far, putting them into action. Think about how you wrote for your presidential campaign and use that to guide you for writing this argumentative essay, because all the passion that you put into your argumentative speech for Rally Day, that's the kind of passion you want to put into your argumentative writing. All right, at the end of this, there are 2 sample questions that I'd like you to take a look at and choose one of these 2. Thomas Paine, pause the video if you have to so you can read it, or Horace the Eliciting Talents, and pause the video if you need to in order to read that one. I want you to outline a response for class tomorrow. At the beginning of class tomorrow, we'll start talking about the response that you could possibly have for that. All right, thank you very much. See you tomorrow.